Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name is Ben Grant, his name is JB, and we are here to get you set for Game 2, Week 3, as the Argos take on the former Argos, otherwise known as the Edmonton Elks. We got a lot to talk about today. Coming off a bye week, we got to talk about McFadden signing in Ottawa. We're going to talk about a new Argos signing, Jake Herzlo, and what number he'll be wearing, etc. There's a gift shop update that I want to bring to you. And I got to talk to you a little bit about Running Back Relentless, the Andrew Harris documentary that drops tomorrow. It may already have dropped by the time you're listening to this. Drops Thursday. We'll get into that. Plus, we've got all our usual stuff. Pick six, game preview. We've got OCDC, One Thing, predictions, Put Me Down for 20, and our CFL picks. All that and more is coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, Something in the Water Brewing is the perfect place to go pre-game. The game this week, again, another home game, and second of three in a row to start the season. Great time to get down to Something in the Water before the game. Have a pint of Longboat. If you haven't tried Longboat yet, you have to. Longboat is the beer that was made for fans of the Double Blue. It's got the little Argos themed helmet here, X's and O's all over the beer can, and it's a fantastic beer to boot, so you got to try that. And it's just steps from BMO Field. So yeah, grab a parking spot or just get off the go, head right to Something in the Water, have a pint or two, head over to the game. It's perfect. Everything's walking distance. And hopefully we get a chance to see you down at Something in the Water this Saturday pregame. JB, we got a huge lineup. Let's get to things. So first of all, Tarvarus McFadden signs in Ottawa. I'm not shocked that he's signed somewhere, but would you say that you are more surprised by Tarvarus McFadden signing in Ottawa, or by the fact that Sean Oakman still is unsigned at this point?
I would guess McFadden was cheaper. I think that secondary tends to be a place where teams are always looking for a little more depth than D-line. I think that makes sense that he would go first. And also, he was cut a little before, and a lot of times teams like to do due diligence about what was the reason behind the cut. So it makes sense to me that McFadden would go first and that teams might wait a little bit on Oakman.
And I agree with that. And I think the difference between that and like Benoit Marion, who was picked up almost immediately by the Tiger Cats, is that being a Canadian changes things a little bit because there's the real value in that. And so there's a rush like, hey, let's get that guy right away. And also teams generally are more familiar with the Canadians because they all the way going back, they did the scouting process. They watched them through U Sports and everything else. And so they know those players more. So I don't think you can compare what happened with Benoit Marion to McFadden and Oakman, but McFadden and Oakman together, I agree. I think that's absolutely the thing. DBs are honestly underpaid in the CFL of all the positional groups. It's you get tremendous value in DBs, which isn't really fair market wise, but it's because there's so many great DBs that you can bring in. We've talked about that before, and McFadden is one of them. I think he right away is going to make an impact in Ottawa because that DB room is banged up. They've got Money Hunter out there, and putting McFadden on that secondary, I think you can move him around. You can play him at a halfback as well as corner. So I think that's a very nice move for the Red Blacks. The Argos have picked up Jake Herzlo, who I thought was a really fascinating signing. I'll give you a little bit of background on him. So he was Old Dominion and then Houston, had a bit of a mini camp tryout with the Seahawks, and then ended up in Saskatchewan. Really impressed people last season in Saskatchewan, but suffered a knee injury, and then that was basically it. So the Argos bring him in earlier this week. What I like about him, JB, is that he's a guy that can play inside. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. There's a lot of versatility there. And he'll be wearing number 87 from what I understand as well. That was what he was wearing at practice. And so I assume that's going to be his jersey number going forward. This is, to me, as soon as I saw the signing, I thought this is a signing JB will like, bringing guys. Let's see what they've got. Expectations, we don't know, but what do you think of signing Jake Herzlo?
Yeah, it's a little weird. I would imagine that this must be a coach making a call. He clearly is a coach's dream. Everything about him is that he is a try hard, work hard guy. Um, he obviously has some elite athleticism. You don't just get invited to an NFL camp, even if you don't last long at the camp. They're not going to let somebody come in. So I'm assuming that he is probably a little faster than people are expecting. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's exciting. I mean, I think that we have an opening for a wide receiver right now, and I like that he was invited to an NFL camp. I'm curious to see what he can be. If he can be a nice little like underneath possession guy, I think that would be fantastic for Dukes.
Yeah, I think for sure. And like you said, a try hard guy for sure.
Especially with Anger out.
Yeah, well, there's so many guys hurt right now, guys banged up, and Tarvarus and stuff too. There aren't a lot of inside guys, especially. So I think that's a nice add from that standpoint. But yeah, I think he was a walk on at Houston. And again, the NFL teams aren't saying, hey, that walk on from the small school, why don't we bring that kid in, right?
He got an invite, so it's clearly somebody's out there pounding the table for this kid.
Yeah, so yeah, let's take a look. And he did impress in Saskatchewan. So yeah, for sure, we'll take a look. I've got a rare gift shop update, and this is unsolicited because I don't usually market the Toronto Argonauts gift shop, but I get a lot of emails and DMs about my mini helmets over my right shoulder here. Where can I get those mini helmets? There are currently Argos mini helmets available on the Argos shop. And so if you are one of the people that keeps emailing me and DMing me, and again, I don't mind. That's fine. I love that you love the helmets, but I get a lot of them. So now I've got an answer for you. You can pick up one of these mini helmets on the Argos site. In fact, I think every team's site has one. The Elks is the only one that they don't have their current helmet. I'm not sure the Lions have their current helmet either. I think they've got the one that I've got here. They don't have the BC one. But yeah, it's a great time. If you want to stock up on CFL mini helmets, go visit all the CFL shops, but start with the double blue. Obviously, that's a great looking helmet, and it's better than mine. Mine's custom made. Mine's like a North Carolina Tar Heels helmet that I put an Argos sticker on. You can get a much better looking one at the Argos shop. So if you are in the market for an Argos mini helmet, go pick one up at the Argos shop. You can link to it from argonauts.ca.
I enjoy. If there was ever any doubt who creates the rundown for the show, when mini helmet is number 3 on the rundown with an exclamation mark, I think it's pretty clear to the audience who invents the rundown of topics for the show.
Because no one's DMing you about mini helmets. That's why.
No. Also, I enjoy your what was the phrase you used there that you specially made? Was it your euphemism for copyright piracy?
It might be, yes. Let's move on and not talk about piracy and copyright issues. But yes, that is how I put together my mini helmet because I wanted it for week 1, and the helmet was just debuted. I'm like, you know what? I have a North Carolina mini helmet. Let me just see what I can jimmy together here. And just on the topic of mini helmets, this is the first time in the show's history that you can actually see the Edmonton Elks helmet because these are the standings, and the Elks have never, in a week that we've recorded on video, have never been out of the basement, and the poor Blue Bombers are now hidden in last place in the West.
You're 0-2 Edmonton Elks climbing the ladder.
They're right there. Like it's point differential or whatever. That's the CFL standings. So yeah, good for Edmonton making an appearance finally. I didn't need to own an Edmonton Elks helmet at all until this week. In that vein. Moving along, I want to tell you about Running Back Relentless. So this is the Andrew Harris documentary. This, if you're listening to this, you're a CFL fan, but if you're listening to this, you're also most likely an Argos fan. No matter what, Argos fan, Blue Bombers fan, Lions fan, CFL fan in general, movie fan in general, this is a really good film. I got a chance to go to the red carpet premiere in Toronto at Hotel X this past weekend. Really cool experience. Most of the Argos were there. There's some CFL royalty and Andrew Harris, of course, there as well as part of that CFL royalty. And what caught me off guard, I think, right away was talking to the director, Taylor Prestige, prior to watching the movie. He said to me, we were just kind of, chatting, and he said, "You're going to love this movie. It's not what you think, but you're going to love it." And that kind of that set off some bells. I was like, what do you mean it's not what I think? And he was absolutely right on both counts. I did love the movie. It was not at all what I thought. I thought this was going to be, because Andrew Harris, like such a well-decorated future Hall of Fame running back. We know about his career. He's got so many highlights. I thought this was going to be kind of, quarterback drive to survive style behind the scenes. Let's watch him go through this last season, because it was sort of marketed that way. Like he goes through his last season as a pro. And I thought it would be just kind of following him through the 2023 CFL season. They do that, but most of the movie is other stuff, and it's intense. It's heavy. It's a lot of stuff I didn't know about his childhood, about growing up, about some of the challenges that he went through, and some of the fractured relationships in his life, and there how football kind of got him through that as well. But there were hard times in football as well. There's some very real moments. He addresses the suspension for performance enhancing drugs or banned substances rather in 2019. He addresses the realization that the Bombers weren't going to have him back, and his ending up in Toronto. One of my favorite moments of the whole film is seeing Pinball Clemens' face, because he's interviewed, dozens of people are interviewed for this film, but Pinball says, like, the moment he realized Andrew Harris was going to be available as a free agent pickup, his smile in that moment, he's like, his eyes light up. He's like, Andrew Harris is going to be available as a free agent. Like, we got to take care of this. And of course they brought him in. But yeah, fantastic film, start to finish. It is a must watch, and it's coming out tomorrow. And maybe by the time you're listening to this, it's already out, Thursday the 20th. It's Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, and Google Play. JB, you will love this one for sure.
I'm really looking forward to it. During his time here, he was always an impressive individual, clearly very charismatic, very intense. What just you could tell, like a natural leader. And to see somebody having the courage to share the darkest parts of their life and the things that they've gone through. And, you would think here's a CFL Hall of Famer one day, and he's got Grey Cup wins, and life is good and life is great. And for him to share all of that for people to be able to connect to, I just think, is amazing.
It is. And because athletes don't talk this way. They don't talk about this stuff. You just don't see pro athletes open up very often like this. And like I said, like there's some darkness. And for him to put it out there, like, extremely courageous. And if you want to find out more about just generally the stuff that goes on in the film, I've written an article that will debut tomorrow, Thursday. If you want to go to 3 Down Nation, you can take a look at that. It's really a movie review is what it is. If you want more information on that, definitely check that article out on 3 Down Nation. The night itself, there's some highlights. I gotta share my favorite highlight of, like, the red carpet experience, because I'm not used to red carpet events. It's not something I get to do a lot. So when we came in, there's red carpet and a photographer taking pictures, and there's a glam cam and everything else. And behind me is Coach Sweet, offensive line coach, and I go across the red carpet and pose, and he's up next. He's like, no, and he just walks right through. And that was such a football coach move, especially an O-line coach. He's like, I am not doing the red carpet picture and the glam cam. That was just not for him, which I love him as a coach, and he just went up a couple notches there, because he couldn't have been more an O-line coach in that moment. That was awesome. But yeah, it was great to talk to a lot of the players too in a different environment for that. So yeah, wonderful event. But
what was the name of the film again?
It's Running Back Relentless. So yeah, if you want to look that up, Running Back Relentless, Andrew Harris documentary. And that's Upper Canada Films, directed by Taylor Prestige. All right, JB, let's get into our segments. We got Pick 6 first. And so this is a segment brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing, where they give a 6-pack of beer to the person whose question we choose to respond to on the podcast. And this week's winner is Bob Marshall. Bob wrote us a question about defensive coverages, and I'll read it to you, and then maybe, JB, you can start this one off. Bob Marshall says, I have a general idea of the various defensive coverages, but can you explain cover 0, cover 1, etc.? So why don't you kick this one off? And first of all, congratulations, Bob Marshall, on your 6-pack of beer. You can go down to Something in the Water and collect your 6-pack. And if you're not Bob Marshall, you should go down to Something in the Water and purchase your own 6-pack, of course, and thank them for sponsoring this segment and sponsoring X's and Argos podcast and supporting the CFL and the Argos that way. So JB, talk to us about coverages.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, football can get very complicated very quickly, and I never like to get too deep into the weeds. Basically, defensively, the coverage number is based on how many defensive backs you have deep. So if you have coverage 0, that means you have no defensive backs deep. That means that everybody is covering a man and that there is nobody to help you on a deep pass. So cover 0 is a blitzing technique. Cover 1 is when you have a single defensive back, usually a safety, who is either high, so they can kind of roll with the quarterback on deep passes and help out the corners, or that single safety is playing in a robber position, meaning they're coming down and trying to jump a mid-level or an underneath route. But a cover 1 is one defensive back who doesn't have a man coverage responsibility.
And those are like the two styles of man, basically. So 0 and 1 are both man.
Exactly. Essentially, those are other ways of saying man. When you say they're in man coverage, generally, you're talking about 0 or 1. You can have man 2 as well, but yeah, generally speaking, that's what you're talking about. So the easiest way to remember it is how many guys are deep with no man responsibility. That's where the number comes from.
And then cover 2, 3, 4, and there's so many, but just to go through basically, like cover 2 means you have 2 guys deep, and there's various ways you can run it. It can be 2 halfbacks deep, it can be a halfback and a safety, both corners. Like there's so many variations of this, but cover 2 is a true zone. Nobody is in man coverage.
Yeah,
everyone's got a space.
2 deep guys covering half the field each, and then everybody underneath has a smaller zone that they're covering.
And in most of these zones, there are, flats responsibilities. You've got seam responsibilities. There, the linebackers are in on that too. The corners have responsibilities. Everyone does. Cover 3 is probably the most common that we see in the CFL. And just building off cover 2, now you've got one guy deep middle, and then you've got deep thirds on either side. And then cover 4, which is also, you actually see a lot more cover 4 than we used to now. And that's basically you're dividing the field into quarters. And again, this is a very simple explanation, but really that's all you need to know. Like the complexity of it, there's small details that change because of course teams are disguising it for quarterbacks. But yeah, 4 just means you got 4 guys deep. You see the Argos play a lot of 4 last year. We didn't see as much of that in the opening game, but they were, for the last couple of seasons, they've been a true sort of cover 4 team where most of the time that's the coverage they're going to end up in. But a lot of different looks from the Argos this year. So yeah, my recommendation, if this is all new to you, when you watch the game on Saturday, take a look, see if you can start identifying coverages. Watch the secondary, watch who drops deep on the snap. It's not always where they are at the snap of the ball, but as soon as that ball is snapped, where does everybody go? How many guys drop deep? So thank you again, Bob Marshall, for that question, and look for your chance to win a 6-pack in our Pick 6 segment in our next pregame walkthrough episode. All right, it's time for the game preview, JB. It's Pride Night at BMO Field as the Argos take on the Elks. The Argos have done such a good job with Pride Night over the years. What do we have to look forward to this year for the Argos Pride Night?
Yeah, I think every year they've improved. And, it's great to see. It's great to see, obviously June being Pride Month. And, it's great to see the Argos kind of full swing and having a home game right in the middle of it. So they've sent us some information. Obviously, there'll be a lot of Pride swag and gear for people to purchase if you want. I know a lot of it looks terrific. I always like to get some of it. Hats and T-shirts and scarves. They have some really great Argo Pride swag. The sort of the theme of the night will be celebrating the 2S LGBTQ plus community. The stadium hosts will be wearing their Pride gear. I'm sure that most of the events will be Pride based. They have an a cappella group on that note. who's going to do the national anthem, who are a femme queer a cappella group, and the Toronto United Flag Football Organization, which is a LGBTQ organization, is going to be there for the coin toss. So I think it's going to be, really a terrific welcoming night. I love seeing the Argos do this stuff. I hope they continue to do more of it to really become, a place that feels safe for everybody, that feels welcoming to everybody, and not just, once a month or once a year. So it's good to see, and I really hope it's something that becomes a trademark of the club.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And then to add to that, it's going to be a fantastic football game too. And it's like a reunion of sorts, because you've got returning Argonauts all over the place in the Edmonton Elks. MacLeod Bethel-Thompson, Kurleigh Gittens Jr. coming in, Javon Leake, Boris Bede, Josh Hagerty. And then we don't forget about guys like Sam Acheampong, Martez Ivey, Dakota Prukop, Coach Jackson, head coach Chris Jones, obviously with his brief time as an Argonaut. And I was thinking, this is probably how Calgary felt when Toronto came into play at McMahon in 2021.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just, I feel like this is, I don't know if the Elks are quite at that caliber of team yet, but they've got talent on that roster. They haven't been able to put it together. There's potential there.
And they need a win. I mean, it's the CFL, so it's not crisis yet, but yeah, you don't want to go 0-3.
It's getting close to crisis for the Elks though, because they're in their schedule's it doesn't get better after this either, and they could be in a situation really where they're looking at 0-4, 0-5 heading into a bye week. And that's never reassuring for a coaching staff, obviously. So they need to start now, and they will be pulling out all the stops to make sure that they can be in the best position to pick up this win. What's going against them is the Argos are fantastic coming off the bye. Coach Dinwiddie has a 7-1 record as a head coach coming off a bye. That goes back to 2021, and he didn't lose a single post-bye game. He's 6-0 in the last 2 seasons coming off a bye. So this is a coach who really understands how to take advantage of this bye week. That's an unbelievable post-bye. Like you should be in a better position. You should have a winning record coming off your bye, but 7-1 is absurd, and 6-0 in the last 6 is even more absurd. So yeah, they're definitely going to be ready for that. And so if you haven't yet got your ticket, get a ticket. We'll see you down at BMO Field for this one, because it's going to be a fantastic one. All right, JB, let's get into the injury report. On the Elks side, there's not much. Offensive lineman Brett Boyko was back at practice this week for the first time since the beginning of training camp. He started 13 games at right tackle last season for the Elks. And so, do we see him back? That'll be interesting to see. That O-line could certainly use a little bit of support. But that's really all that stands out to me in terms of the Elks injury report. The Argos are a different story. I'm going to go through this here. There's different levels of concern. So first of all, a couple guys coming back. So Albert Awashe, and I used to say this name incorrectly. I was saying Awachi, but it is Awashe. Albert Awashe, the fullback, he was a full go all this week. He was out with a hand injury. DeMonte Coxie, who missed last week with a hamstring injury, he's been full go the last 2 days. So those are the pieces of good news. The bad news, Tavares Daniels has yet to practice this week. Flo Aromalade has yet to practice this week. Those are obviously concerns. Both of the guys were at practice today. They were doing rehab work, but not obviously participating at all in practice. It's still early in the week. There's still a couple more practices to go. It's possible that either one of those guys may end up making it to the game day roster, but it's not promising when you're at Wednesday and there's still not even a limited on there. So we'll have to wait and see. The Daniels one is concerning to me because there aren't a ton of options at slot. And so I was saying this yesterday on Twitter. I was like, what I might do? I might actually move Rashid Bailey. If Daniels can't go, I might move Rashid Bailey over to that boundary slot position and then just sort of juggle around the field side. I don't think that's what they're going to do. Like Coach Dinwiddie over the years he's shown a reluctance to move multiple people around. And I get that. I think there's logic to that way of thinking. And so I think it's more likely, because Mackay Polk played so well last week, it's more likely one of either Polk or Coxie plays in the slot. Probably Polk, because again, you're only moving one piece. But neither of those guys are slot receivers. They've never really had any time in the slot. And I know they're both receiver positions. It's a whole different game playing in the slot, and not everyone can adjust to that. So we'll have to see how they manage that. But that's probably what Dinwiddie would do. I think I'd probably move Bailey over. The other one that we'll have to see is Jonathan Jones. He tried to go yesterday, was limited yesterday, didn't practice today. If he can't go, what's the answer there at the will linebacker position? Is it going to be Fraser Sopik, who played a lot last week after Jones came out? He looked really good and played quite well. Or do they go American there? Maybe Marquise Waters gets his Argos debut. Maybe he plays at the will position. So there are some answers they've got out there. And then the rest of the answers, the rest of the wait and see is how they fill in for not having Benoit Marion. We talked in last week's pod about how the reason for that is you've got guys like Deontay Knight, you've got Awashe coming in, you've got Hergot as well. Like those guys probably are going to be playing a role on special teams, probably playing Hergot and Knight playing on the defensive line as well. So we'll probably see some of that too. Now, the last injury that I want to get to, and this isn't really an injury as such, but it showed up on the injury report today. Cameron Dukes, quarterback, was limited in practice today with an illness. And I don't have too much information about this, but he was trying to give it a go at practice, ended up leaving the field for a little bit, came back, was watching the practice while Scott and Arbuckle took reps. And, he wasn't fully able to go, but he was still out there. Had the towel over his head, and my guess is, just based on him being present and being there for all the teachable moments and installs and everything else, my guess is that he's going to be able to go. It's still a few days away. If this were Friday, I think that would be way more concerning.
I mean, it's early enough in the week that I wouldn't be overly concerned, but I mean, who knows in this, in this day and age, everything is very different.
It's true. And so, like, if Thursday and Friday comes and Dukes isn't able to practice due to illness, now we got to worry. Because, like, if you get a bad flu or COVID or anything like that, like, it can wipe you out energy-wise, even if you're better, even if you feel better by Saturday. And I don't know, as far as I know, it could have just been something he ate. Who knows? Or it could have been heat. I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully he's back at practice tomorrow going full, and we can all breathe a sigh of relief. But both Arbuckle and Brian Scott were picking up the slack, and it's nice that those guys got a lot of time preseason and can pick up the offense just fine if Dukes isn't able to go. But I think it would be premature to suggest that that's a concern at this point. JB, it is time for your favorite segment. It's OCDC. For OCDC, we've got an offensive and defensive strategy session. We will do both teams. We'll start with the offensive side of the ball, and we'll start with the visiting Edmonton Elks. So this is my plan for if I were the offensive coordinator of the Edmonton Elks, how I would attack the Toronto defense. So I'm going to try and attack the corners on Toronto, because there were some busts in week one. Those guys are still very new on the outside, and so I think there's not a lot of vulnerable areas in this defense. I want to do everything I can to avoid the linebackers and the defensive line, with McManus roaming out there in the middle of the field with Mechie and Pierce and Amos, the halfback spots. There's so much strength. And so you have to try and isolate the corners. So there's a few ways that you can do that. Floods are a great start, just to see, floods to the outside, sail concepts and things like that, where you're attacking three different levels. See how those corners respond. If they come up to cut something off, you bait them into coming up into the flats or even those mid-level routes. Maybe you can hit those deep corners in behind them. I think that's a really good start. I would also try maybe see how that's developing, and can you get the halfbacks trying to do someone else's job, trying to compensate for the corners that are out there. Maybe you can then start attacking the middle of the field. So there are ways that your game plan can evolve if it starts by picking on those cornerbacks. I think quick screens out wide as well, just to, again, try and bait those guys to come up. That seemed to be what worked on one of those busts in week 1, was the threat of a quick pass to the outside. That brought the coverage up, and there was everyone wide open downfield. And again, I don't quite know whose responsibility that was, but it looked like a corner that was at fault. So that's what I'm doing if I'm Edmonton. I'm really targeting the outside, and you've got to keep those passes quick to keep that D-line off of MacLeod Bethel-Thompson. What is your defensive plan for the Edmonton Elks, JB?
Well, I think that the Argos have not shown that they. I mean, there's only been one game, right? So, but that I'm more worried about To me, I'm worried about the run. I think that even though Toronto has not run the ball very much, Toronto, like they won that game, but they had some troubling statistics in that game. I mean, they were only averaging 5 yards on first down, and then they had a tremendous second down conversion rate. But that is not a model. That is not a sustainable model. I think that if I'm Edmonton, I'm absolutely going to make the quarterback beat us. I'm going to take that running back out of it. I'm going to focus on closing down the run game. I want to keep the running back under 60 yards. I think that for Dukes, Dukes played really well, but not in a way that scares me as a defensive coordinator. So I'm going to take running off the table. And I'm going to feel like I'm going to, try and get pressure to get to Dukes, and I'm gonna see if we can get to him, because there were some troubling statistical issues in that first game that the Argos will need to change if they are going to, if they're going to be successful. They certainly are not, even though they had great downfield throws, they're not a deep bomb offense yet, and don't seem to be. So I'm not concerned about that. I do think coach is going to be cooking up in the lab some problems for Toronto, and I think this is the nature of it. Is the more film there is on Dukes, the harder it becomes to get away with not having the talent of a star at quarterback, right? It's just how it is. It becomes harder and harder to get away with things, because now people are looking at your tendencies, and now you have to try and break that tendency, and that's going to be really hard. So if I'm Edmonton, I'm filling 10 yards and in, and I'm just daring Toronto to throw the ball 40 yards.
And for our pick six questions, we actually had a lot of people asking about, how will Edmonton play Dukes now that there is film? And a lot of people were asking, like, do they blitz a lot and play 0 and play 1? I actually don't think so at all. I think it's, your plan of really looking run first, but I think out of zone looks, because what Dukes does really well is he's extremely accurate with the football. And so 1 and 0 are actually pretty good for him, where he doesn't have to necessarily read, where he can just, make a targeted throw and be pinpoint accurate, because his receiver can usually get a step. But playing a zone where you can really condense the field, like playing cover 2, but not having anybody more than 10 yards back at the snap of the ball, could really create a problem. And everyone on the field can now be looking run first to adhere to your defensive plan, for example. Let's look at the good guys for OCDC. So for Toronto, my offensive plan, I think, so there's vulnerability on Edmonton's defense. There certainly is vulnerability in terms of running. But like you said, I'm expecting to see a lot of run-stopping presence from the Elks. And so when I look at the defensive secondary, the strongest player in their defensive secondary to me is Lucius Purifoy at the safety spot. They look so different in week one when Purifoy wasn't dressed, and there was, Jackson was playing safety, and you had all of these like first and second year guys playing in the secondary. Kai Gray, I love him as a corner. I think he's a great player too, but Purifoy is a different level from the rest of that secondary. I think you actually can pick on him. Watching his game against Montreal last week, because he's directing traffic out there. To me, it looked like he was actually trying to do other people's jobs as well as his own, because he's seeing things better than everyone else in the field. He's playing next to rookies and first year guys or 1.5 year guys. And so I think you can actually bait Purifoy and catch him trying to do too much. And so, Mills concepts where you've got like a dig route and then a post route in behind that, like high lows on him, I think you can draw him down. He made a couple huge hits on routes over the middle last week. And I think there's room to catch him, looking to do a little bit too much. So I wouldn't rule that out, even though you say, well, he's the strongest guy. Why would you go after him? I think there's room there if you can bait him into coming down or bait him into getting out of position and covering for the halfbacks on either side. So that's something that I would look at. Post seam combos, stuff like that too. He's being really aggressive, and that's going to lead to holes opening up. I also think this is a good time to bring back that forgotten receiver screen that we didn't see at all last week. So Edmonton's going to be watching the Cameron Dukes film. They're coming up with plans for him. I know, JB, we used to call this the Ricky Collins screen because Dinwiddie loves this play. In 2021, it was the Ricky Collins screen. 2022 was the Brandon Banks screen. Last year was the David Ungerer screen that's sort of quick to the wide out. You get your line on the move, get Dejon Allen out there blocking and cutting behind him. They didn't do any of that last week, so they're studying all Cam Dukes' film, and they won't see that play. They know it's there, but still these players looking at most recent aren't necessarily going to be as prepped for that. So this is the time to bring it out. I don't know who you throw it to right now because Ungerer is out, obviously. So they'll find someone to be the new Ricky Collins, Brandon Banks, Dave Ungerer on that receiver screen. So I think those are the two ways I attack Edmonton. And you got to run the ball too, but pass first has got to be the mentality.
Like that Edmonton defense is going to be disrespectful, and because they will only respect when taught. And, I do think the double move, I do think the double pump, I do think the hitch and go, I think that stuff is there because they do not respect Dukes. And now it's easier said than done, but I agree with you. I do think that they are going to be looking to ball hawk and looking to bully Dukes.
Yeah, that's the way you attack an aggressive defense is, those, double moves and stuff if you have time. Counters and things too off the run game. I think you're going to catch them over pursuing too. So, yeah, that's my strategy. What are you doing for the Argos defense to stop MacLeod Bethel-Thompson, Macbeth, and the former Argonauts?
Look, Edmonton has not shown, they haven't shown to be a dangerous run team. I feel like defensively, like we do not need to scheme up anything special for the run game. With MacLeod, I think a lot of those guys don't know him. He's looking to Kurleigh Gittens. I would definitely roll coverage to Kurleigh Gittens. He's going to be looking for Kurleigh, of course, both being from Toronto. So I would definitely, not every down, but I would definitely look to double him in passing downs. With MacLeod, he can get frustrated. He can get really impatient, and so he is a streaky quarterback. So like for MacLeod, like I think you're looking to take away the deep pass, and you want to force MacLeod to go down the field in 8-yard bunches and see and see if he'll keep taking the free candy without wanting to let that rocket go, and that has been something that that can be frustrating for him. So I mean, I think you definitely want to keep that deep stuff there to take away the deep pass that he really wants to throw and bring heat. He's an older guy now, even than when he was in Toronto. That defensive line is going to be something that Toronto's going to have to really count on as the secondary kind of learns and comes together. And that defensive line linebacker combo, I can't imagine that MacLeod doesn't think about Winton McManus. And I would bring Winton a couple of times early just to have him in his head. Lots of games on the line, twists, bringing guys from different places, bringing a late move from the defensive backfield. I think you want to be kind of exotic here because you can get in MacLeod's head with the pressure. He's not scared, but it does rush him, and he's not as good off platform. So I would that's what I would do. I would for sure in the first quarter bring Winton at least twice because who can't think about that on the snap of the ball when they're identifying Winton McManus, because if he comes through, like, it's a problem.
Flo Aromalade dressing is such a big difference in this too, because like you talk about blitzing McManus, but also you know how they use Flo as a linebacker sometimes. They'll do a 3-man set and Flo's coming from somewhere, but you don't know where because he's kind of lined up in that max spot. He could be A gap, B gap, C gap. They could be doing twists.
And look, bait MacLeod into that cross field throw. He loves it. He loves that wide side. The wide side short throw. I would bait him on that all day.
It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it is a big difference. Like, you know, Parrish, if Flo can't go, Parrish is going to be the guy on the edge, sort of being being Flo. But I don't think I don't know if they're at that level of comfort with him yet, where he's going to be lining up the way Flo does and going anywhere. I think it's just I don't know if that trust level is quite there yet. So we'll have to see. But yeah, that O-line D-line could be the difference in this game.
Yeah, I think it will be. Honestly, I think it is the one unit on Toronto right now which is absolutely elite.
Let's get to one thing. Last week, my one thing did not come through. I was looking for 30 air yards. I wanted a deep bomb completed. There were long passes, but they were yards after catch. They were crossers that turned into big plays. My one thing this week, I'm going to change it up a little bit. What I want to see, because I think it's going to be tough sledding in the run game, but this O-line needs to prove that they are the best O-line in the CFL, and I believe they are. And I think Kadeem Carey has a real shot at being among the leaders in the CFL in rushing yards, but I would like to see a bit more rotation, an earlier rotation with those backs. So what I'm looking for is 100 combined rushing yards from running backs. So not including Dukes' scrambling yards. I want to see 100 combined rushing yards from running backs. If we see that, there's no doubt in my mind the Argos win this game. What's your one thing, JB?
Well, you know what I want to see? I want to see a kick return touchdown. I want to see a kick return reverse touchdown. That's how specific I want. I want really a reverse. Specific. I want the reverse in. I feel like I know why coaches don't like it because there's like 10 things that can go wrong, but I want it. I want the reverse in. A reverse touchdown is that's my one thing.
Yeah, I hate reverse on kickoff when it's like my team because so much goes wrong. I love fake reverse. Fake reverse on kickoff is great because the ball never changes hands. You never get fumbles.
I can live with fake reverse too. We'll put that in brackets.
See, I like the idea. I do like that setup. Like with a guy like Leake or Janarian Grant now, like those are great because the team is okay. We got Janarian Grant this week. Let's really focus on it. And so I like playing off of that. And so like if whoever's lining up there with him, whether it's McMahon or whoever, if like McMahon catches the ball, I love the fake reverse off that because now as Janarian comes over,
open the game, multicolored fireworks, bang, here we go,
boom,
reverse
or fake reverse,
touchdown.
Right. I'm on board. I like that. Let's get into our predictions, JB. How does this one end for you? Who wins by how many? How does it go?
Well, I'm with Toronto here. I think that they are the better team. Edmonton will be desperate. They know Toronto. They need to get a win. I like Toronto at home. I like Toronto coming off the bye. I like Toronto to win this game 28-21.
And that would be a cover on that score. I think it's going to be really tight. I think, like you said, like the Argos are in a positive position. I like them to win the game coming off the bye, everything else we talked about. The Elks are desperate. They need this so much more than Toronto needs it. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Elks up, maybe even into the second half, and have Toronto have to come back, kind of like we saw in that opener against BC. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, even though I think Toronto is the much better team. I would not be surprised just with the desperation, with all these guys putting just that much more into it because they are returning to play against their former team. There's so many of those guys, they would love to put one down at BMO. And guys that are familiar at playing at BMO, one of the huge advantages of BMO is the only field with natural grass. That's a difference maker with so many teams. They only play there like once a year for most teams. With these Elks, that's not the case. MacLeod Bethel-Thompson's very familiar with the surface. Kurleigh Gittens Jr., Javon Leake, Boris Bede, and kicking off the grass. Like, these guys are all very familiar with it. And so maybe it doesn't have the same edge that it does with some of the other teams that you play. I think it's going to be tight. Argos take it in the end, but 24-20 is going to be my score. All right, it has put me down for 20 time, JB, and the Golden Fleeces did not fall your way last week.
I have two words for all of those games, and that is out and outrageous. Those games were outrageous, just teams pouring drinks down the front of their shirt. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe beat after beat was just, guy washing his car gif.
Yeah, it's you had some bad luck last week. I had some good luck last week. Some would say it's not luck. Some would say that over a period of time like this, it's skill. But
felt like luck.
Yeah. So for our bets last week. You were 0-2. You boldly set your own spread with Edmonton and had them at -5.5, which did not come through as Edmonton lost the game, spilling drinks down their shirt. And then you had...
But it was there. It was there to win.
They had to win second week in a row. Them and Hamilton, like Edmonton and Hamilton, just have had no manner of luck whatsoever to start the season. When you don't know how to win, it's very tough to get over that hump. The first win of the season for either of those teams will go a long way.
Edmonton is now in the dead to me category, so...
Yeah, you can only have that many in a 9-team league. You can only have so many teams in the dead to me category, and you're piling them up.
I've just one right now, but there's a couple. Believe me, there are a couple whose applications I'm looking over.
And you had Dalton Schoen with the first touchdown of the game. That did not happen either. Ottawa locked him down pretty well last week. I was 1-1, but I had a big hit on Ottawa on the money line at +245. So we are currently standing. We started with 200 Golden Fleeces. I've got 228.5 Golden Fleeces. You have 191.5 Golden Fleeces coming into this week. And before we get into our picks this week, a reminder as always: do not take our picks seriously. We don't, and so you should not be risking your hard-earned money on things we say and advice we give, because it is just for fun. Never bet more than you'd be happy to lose as the cost of entertainment. All right, JB, I'll hit you with mine first. I think I have honors this week, and then you can go with your Golden Fleeces. So my non-Argos bet, I'm going to put 10 Golden Fleeces on BC on the money line at +115. I think the wrong team's favored here. I don't know how. Let me clarify here. Winnipeg's going to turn it around. Winnipeg has really gotten off to a slow start, honestly, in every season over the last few years. It's just that they've actually been able to win, though, despite that. They didn't look good to start the season last year. They still won. And the year before that, they didn't look good to start the season, but they still managed to win. Ottawa is shooting themselves in the foot, and they had a couple. I think there was an easy win after that, but they haven't always had the hottest starts. And veteran teams don't always, especially when they're not playing a lot of preseason time, and they barely played any this year. So they will turn it around, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them beat BC. But based on the resume of 2024, what we've seen, the BC Lions are a better team than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Nobody, I don't think, has looked worse in the first 2 weeks than the Blue Bombers. And so for them to be favored by 2.5 points as we currently stand, I just think that's the wrong team favored. So could Winnipeg win? Absolutely. They could blow BC out. But based on what I've seen so far, they're going to have to prove it to me. So 115 on the money line for 10 of my fleeces. And then for my Argos bet, I like the odds on the Cameron Dukes first touchdown wager. For Cameron Dukes to get the team's first touchdown, or the game's first touchdown rather, is plus 700. And so I'm going to put 10 golden fleeces on that and look for a big swing. JB, where are you going with your hard-earned fleeces this week?
Yeah, I wasn't really feeling my picks last week, so I wasn't that surprised they didn't go down. I went back and forth on this, but you know what? I'm gonna go with Ottawa, winning 1-6, or with one, between 1 and 6 points. I feel like Montreal is not gonna go 3-0. I think Ottawa's gonna surprise them, and I've got Ottawa plus 500.
That's a nice.
So I got
they have to win between 1 and 6 points.
There.
Okay, 10 fleeces. And your Argos wager?
And my Argo related pick for 10 fleeces, I have Kurleigh Gittens Jr. with an anytime touchdown at plus 135. They will be looking for him at any given opportunity. My hope is that he only scores 1 touchdown. I would be shocked if he does not score a touchdown. Let me just say that.
Wow. Okay. And at plus 135, yeah, you got it. Okay. Godspeed, JB.
Yeah, we feel good.
Let's get to our CFL picks. So last week, you struggled a little bit, going 1-3. BC was your only.
I didn't struggle. Number of my teams struggled in the 2-minute drill.
3 of your teams struggled. I was 4-0, and so my record is currently 6-2 on the season. You were at 3-5, looking for a bounce back week.
You gonna take that Saskatchewan win?
Yeah, a win's a win. It's I picked Saskatchewan. I didn't see it going like that, but 4-0, I'll take it because I know I'm going to get some bad beats at some point this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's open it up. I'll go first again. I think I've got honors in this as well. So Ottawa at Montreal. I'm going to take Montreal on this. They look like the best team in the league right now. They're number 1 in everybody's power rankings, mine included. And until someone beats them, I'm going to keep picking the Alouettes. So, yeah, it's Montreal for me. Where are you going in that? Well, you've already said you're...
I have not.
You're going to hedge?
I reserve the right to hedge.
Okay.
Sometimes when, as defending champion, sometimes one has to grind. One can't just get to a title willy-nilly, so I will also take Montreal.
I can't believe you were taking Montreal in the CFL picks, and you're taking Ottawa on Put Me Down for 20. This is a new low for you, JB.
As reigning pick champion, I think you have to understand that sometimes you have to be a professional about these things.
This is absurd. This is the grinder mentality that you hate so much. All right, I'm writing down Montreal for you. If you'd like to just copy do you want me to just copy all 4 of my picks for you this week?
Carry on.
BC at Winnipeg. I'm taking BC as I did on the money line. Not hedging my bets. Where are you going this week?
I actually also looked at that money line. I wondered if Vegas wasn't going to quit on Winnipeg, and they have not. And but I am going to give Winnipeg one more chance to not be dead to me. They have applied for dead to me status, but that has been rejected. I'm going to take Winnipeg.
And then we've got Edmonton at Toronto. We've both already picked Toronto. Now, you picked them in your predictions. Does that mean you're also picking them?
That's a separate thing. Let's not.
I didn't know if you're going to do a 3-way hedge.
Let's not lose sight of things here.
Would you also like to place a bet on Kurleigh Gittens Jr. not getting a touchdown, since we're? And
if that was an option, sure. But we only have 2. We only have 2 plays.
Hamilton at Saskatchewan. This is a tough one. I had no idea what to do with this one. Back to back is always, back to back home and homes. If Hamilton had won this past week, which they should have, I would confidently take Saskatchewan this week. I don't know what to do with this. I'm taking Saskatchewan anyway because Hamilton just needs to show me they know how to win. They have to show me they know how to win, because so far they haven't. They probably should have won in Calgary. They definitely should have won in Hamilton against Saskatchewan last week. They lost both, and so like Edmonton, they're gonna have to prove it to me. So I'm gonna take Saskatchewan, but I don't feel at all good about that pick because that should have been Hamilton's game last week. Where are you going?
Saskatchewan. I mean, look, I was on them from the get-go. I'm excited for them. I think that Trevor Harris is playing really well. I do think they know how to win. I do think that they are able to pull stuff out, and they've won games not playing necessarily particularly great defense, and they are, they are still not doing a great job of protecting the quarterback, and they have they're still running into some penalty issues that can get cleaned up a little bit. So I think Saskatchewan has things they can clean up, and I like them to win at home.
Well, that will just about do it for us on this pregame walkthrough episode of the X's and Argos podcast. Hope we see you down at Something in the Water Brewing on Saturday, and we hope we see you at the game as well at BMO Field. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.